The space around the dead star was quiet and cold. Nothing moved in the darkness except for one small human ship floating like a broken toy. The USS Liberty Bell looked hurt. Smoke came from its engines. Its lights flickered on and off. It sent out weak radio signals asking for help. Captain Vextar smiled as he watched the human ship from his command chair. His yellow eyes glowed with joy. His 4 arms moved over the control panels of his massive warship. Around him, 30 of his best warriors waited for orders. They were the strongest fighters in the Zephyrian Empire. Each one stood 8 feet, tall with thick gray skin and sharp teeth. "Look at them," Vextar said to his second-in-command. "These humans think they are so smart, but they are just weak creatures who got lucky with their weapons." The Zephyrian captain had been hunting human ships for 3 months. His orders were simple: find human cargo ships, take their goods, learn their secrets, send the information back to the Empire. So far he had captured 12 human vessels. This would be number 13. "Their engines are almost dead," his weapons officer reported. "They have no shields. I count only 12 humans on board. They will not fight us." Vexitar stood up from his chair. He was the largest Zephyrian on the ship. Scars covered his arms from many battles. "Prepare the boarding party. We will take this ship in 10 minutes. These humans will tell us everything about their trade routes." On the Liberty Bell, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair and watched the alien ship get closer. He looked calm, but his green eyes were sharp and alert. Jake was not a big man. He stood only 6 feet tall with brown hair and normal human strength, but something about the way he sat made his crew feel safe. "They are taking the bait," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. She was young with short blonde hair and quick fingers that danced over her controls. Amy looked like any normal human woman, but her eyes held secrets. "Good," Jake said quietly. "Remember, everyone, we are just scared cargo runners. We want to go home to our families. We have valuable supplies they want. Act afraid, but not too afraid." Engineer Pete Williams looked up from his control panel. He was a big man with thick arms and gray hair. Pete looked like he should be fixing trucks, not running a spaceship. "All systems ready, Captain. The toys are hidden and waiting." "Communications?" Jake asked. Lisa Brown turned in her chair. She had red hair and a sweet face that made people want to trust her. "All channels are open and broadcasting. Our friends know where we are." Jake nodded. "Remember, we have done this before. Stay calm. Follow the plan. In 1 hour, those aliens will wish they had never heard of humans." The Zephyrian boarding party used their transport beam to appear on the Liberty Bell. They came in a flash of blue light, fully armed and ready for battle. Their leader was Commander Zektar, Vextar's younger brother. He was almost as big as the captain, but twice as mean. "Humans!" Zektar shouted in broken English. "You will surrender now. We take your ship and your cargo. Anyone who fights will die." Jake slowly stood up and raised his hands. His crew did the same. They all looked scared and helpless. "Please don't hurt us," Jake said in a shaking voice. "We are just traders. We have families at home." Amy looked at the floor and made her voice sound weak. "We were taking medical supplies to the outer colonies. Our engine broke down. We have been waiting for rescue for 2 days." The Zephyrians laughed. Their voices sounded like rocks grinding together. They had seen this before. Humans always acted the same way when they were caught. They begged and cried and gave up without a fight. "Where is your cargo?" Zektar demanded. "Show us your storage rooms. We will take what we want." Pete stepped forward with his hands still up. "The main cargo hold is down that hallway. Please just take what you need and let us go." 2 Zephyrian warriors grabbed Pete and pushed him forward. 4 more aliens followed. The rest spread out through the ship to search for anything valuable. They moved with confidence. These humans were no threat to them. But as the aliens walked through the ship, small things started to happen. Doors that should have been open were closed. Lights that should have been bright were dim. The air felt wrong somehow, like breathing through thick soup. Ryan Davis, the ship's security chief, watched the aliens from the corner of his eye. Ryan was a quiet man with dark skin and careful movements. He looked like he had never hurt anyone in his life, but his hands were steady and his breathing was slow and controlled. "Captain," one of the Zephyrian warriors called out, "these humans have strange equipment in their lower decks. It does not look like medical supplies." Dr. Helen Grant smiled slightly when she heard this. Helen was a small woman with gray hair and gentle hands. She looked like she should be teaching children or baking cookies, but her smile made some of the aliens feel uncomfortable, though they did not know why. "What kind of equipment?" Zektar asked. "Computer systems, scanning devices, things we do not recognize." Jake looked nervous, which was exactly what he wanted. "Those are just navigation computers. We use them to find safe routes through dangerous space." But Zektar was not stupid. He had captured many human ships. Something felt different about this one. The crew was too calm. The ship was too organized. And why would a simple cargo ship have such advanced computers? "Search everything," he ordered his warriors. "Check every room. Find out what these humans are really doing." As the aliens spread out through the ship, they began to notice more strange things. The walls were thicker than normal. Some rooms had no windows. Others had equipment they had never seen before. And everywhere they went, the human crew watched them with eyes that seemed to see too much. Danny Lee, the ship's tactical specialist, kept his face blank as aliens walked past him. Danny was young and thin with nervous hands and thick glasses. He looked like he should be working with computers in a safe office somewhere. But he counted every alien, noted their weapons, and remembered exactly where each one went. The Zephyrians found the main cargo hold and forced Pete to open it. But when the doors slid apart, they saw something that made them pause. The room was mostly empty except for a few containers marked with medical symbols, but the walls were covered with screens and monitoring equipment. "This is not a normal cargo hold," one of the warriors said. Pete shrugged and tried to look embarrassed. "We also do some research work. Study space conditions, check for dangerous radiation. It helps us find safer trade routes." But even as he said it, more Zephyrians were discovering that nothing on this ship was what it seemed to be. The medical bay had too many computers. The crew quarters had equipment that looked military. And slowly, very slowly, some of the aliens began to realize they might have made a terrible mistake. The trap was closing, but the Zephyrians did not know it yet. The first sign of trouble came when the Zephyrian warriors tried to open the sealed storage rooms in the lower deck. Their energy weapons could cut through most human metal like butter. But these doors just got hot and stayed closed. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. "Use more power," Zektar ordered. The warriors turned up their weapons and fired again. This time the doors glowed bright red, but they still did not open. Worse, the smell in the air changed. It became sharp and bitter, like burning chemicals. "Pete," Williams watched from across the hallway. His face showed fear, but his eyes were calm. "Those doors are made from special metal," he said quietly. "We use them to protect dangerous medical supplies. If you break them open, the chemicals inside might hurt everyone." But Zektar was getting angry. He grabbed Pete by the shirt and lifted him off the ground. "You will open these doors now, or I will throw you out into space." Pete looked terrified. His hands shook as he entered numbers into a control panel. The doors finally opened with a soft hiss. But what the aliens saw inside made them stop and stare. The room was not full of medical supplies. Instead, it looked like a laboratory. Computer screens covered the walls. Strange devices sat on metal tables, and in the center of the room were several empty chairs with metal straps and wires attached to them. "What is this place?" one of the Zephyrian warriors asked. Dr. Helen Grant stepped forward. She still looked like a kind old woman, but now her smile was different. It was the smile of someone who had found something very interesting to study. "This is where we do our research," she said in a soft voice. "We study different types of alien life forms. We learn how they think, how they fight, and how they can be stopped." The Zephyrians looked around the room again. Now they could see what they had missed before. Charts on the wall showed alien body parts. Computers displayed information about different species. And in glass containers on the shelves were things that looked very much like Zephyrian weapons and armor pieces. Zektar felt something cold move down his spine. You are traders. You said you carry medical supplies. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the room. He was no longer acting scared. His voice was steady and calm. We never said we were just traders. We said we were taking medical supplies to the colonies. That was true. But we are also something else. Amy Carter touched her control pad. The lights in the room became brighter. More equipment became visible. Screens showed pictures of Zephyrian ships, including the one that was sitting right outside. We are researchers, Jake continued. We study species that might be dangerous to human colonies. For the past 6 months, we have been watching your ship, Captain Vextar. We know where you come from. We know where you are going. We know how many ships are in your fleet. Lisa Brown spoke from her communication station. We also know that you have captured 12 human cargo ships in the past 3 months. We have the names of every human you killed. We have records of every ship you destroyed. The Zephyrian warriors started to look nervous. They were still 30 soldiers against 12 humans. But something had changed. The humans were no longer acting afraid. Instead, they looked like people who had been expecting this meeting for a long time. You set a trap for us, Zektar said slowly. Ryan Davis nodded. He still looked quiet and harmless, but now he stood differently. His body was balanced and ready to move. We have been waiting for you to find us. We left clues for your scouts to follow. We made our ship look damaged so you would think we were easy prey. Danny Lee pushed his glasses up his nose and smiled. We studied 17 different ways your species likes to attack human ships. You always do the same things. You always make the same mistakes. Dr. Grant walked over to one of the computers and started typing. Pictures of Zephyrian anatomy appeared on the screen. We know that your thick skin can stop most human bullets. We know that your forearms make you very strong. We know that you can see in the dark better than humans. She turned to look at the aliens with bright, interested eyes. But we also know your weaknesses. We know what sounds hurt your ears. We know what smells make you sick. We know exactly how your breathing works and what happens when certain gases get into your lungs. The Zephyrians were starting to understand that they were in serious trouble, but they still had their weapons and their numbers. Zektar raised his energy rifle and pointed it at Jake. It does not matter what you know, he snarled. We are still stronger than you. We will kill you and take your research back to our empire. Jake did not look worried. You can try, but first you should know something else. Lisa, tell them about our friends. Lisa smiled and touched her controls. The main screen showed a star map. 3 groups of red dots were moving toward their location. Those are human battle fleets, she said cheerfully. The moment you boarded our ship, we sent them a signal. They have been traveling here for the past 20 minutes. You are lying, Zektar said, but his voice was not as confident as before. Also, Amy added, we may have forgotten to mention something about your transport beam. When you used it to get on our ship, our computers recorded the signal. Now we know exactly how it works. Pete Williams grinned, which means we can block it whenever we want. You cannot beam back to your ship until we let you. The Zephyrian warriors looked at each other. Some of them tried to activate their communication devices to call their ship, but all they heard was static and noise. Your captain cannot hear. You, Danny explained. We are jamming all signals going in and out of this ship. As far as Captain Vexistar knows, you are still searching for cargo and will report back soon. Dr. Grant clapped her hands together like a happy child. This is so exciting. We have never had live Zephyrian subjects to study before. We have so many questions about your biology and your culture. She walked closer to the nearest warrior, who took a step back. For example, we think your species has excellent memory, but poor problem-solving skills. You are very good at following orders, but not very good at changing plans when something unexpected happens. We also believe, Jake added, that Zephyrians have trouble working together when they are confused or scared. Unlike humans, who get stronger when they are in danger, your species gets weaker when things do not go as expected. The humans were all smiling now, but their smiles were not kind or friendly. They were the smiles of people who had been planning something for a very long time and were finally getting to see if their plan would work. Tony Miller, who had been quiet until now, spoke up from the corner. "We have been preparing for this meeting for months. Every piece of equipment on this ship was chosen specifically to deal with Zephyrian warriors. Every room was designed to give us advantages and take away yours." The aliens realized they were no longer the hunters. Somehow, they had become the prey. And the worst part was that the humans had been expecting them all along. The hunt began slowly, like a spider web closing around trapped flies. The Zephyrians did not realize it at first. They thought they still had the advantage because they had more warriors and bigger weapons. But the humans had been preparing for this moment for months. Danny Lee was the first to start the real game. He touched a button on his control pad and suddenly voices filled the air around them. The voices were speaking in the Zephyrian language, but the words were all wrong. "Help us," the voices cried. "The humans are killing us. Captain Vextar, where are you? We are dying down here." The Zephyrian warriors looked around in confusion. They knew those voices. They were the voices of their friends and brothers who had stayed on the main ship. But how could they be in trouble? The humans were trapped here with them. "That is not real," Zektar said, but his voice was shaking. "You are playing recordings to trick us." Danny smiled and pushed his glasses up his nose. "Some of it is recordings, some of it is not. We have been listening to your communications for weeks. We learned how to copy your voices and make new messages." More voices came from the walls. This time they sounded like Captain Vextar himself. "All warriors return to the ship immediately. We are under attack. The humans have betrayed us." Then another voice that sounded like Vextar said something completely different. "Stay on the human ship. Kill everyone. Do not return until the mission is complete." The Zephyrian warriors did not know which voice to believe. They started looking at each other with worry and fear. Some wanted to return to their ship. Others wanted to follow their original orders. The confusion made them argue with each other instead of watching the humans. While the aliens were distracted, Pete Williams was making other changes to the ship. He touched controls that the Zephyrians could not see. Slowly, the air in the ship began to change. It started with a smell that was almost too faint to notice. But Zephyrians had very good noses, and some of them began to feel uncomfortable. The smell reminded them of something bad, but they could not remember what. "The air tastes wrong," one warrior said to another. "It is just the human ship," his friend replied. "All human ships smell strange." But Pete knew exactly what he was doing. He had studied Zephyrian biology for months. He knew that certain smells could make them feel sick and confused. The chemicals he was putting into the air were not dangerous enough to kill, but they would make the aliens think slower and move less quickly. Dr. Grant watched the aliens with bright, interested eyes. She had a small device in her hand that she used to record everything she saw. "Fascinating," she whispered to herself. "Look how they react when they are uncertain. Their body language changes completely." She walked closer to one of the Zephyrian warriors. The alien was holding his weapon, but his hands were shaking slightly. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked in a kind voice. "You look a little pale." The warrior tried to point his weapon at her, but his arms felt heavy. "Stay away from me, human." "Of course," Helen said sweetly. "I am just curious about your species. For example, did you know that Zephyrian warriors need to eat every 6 hours, or they start to feel weak? And you have been on this ship for almost 4 hours now." The alien's eyes went wide. He had not thought about food, but now that she mentioned it, he was starting to feel hungry. Hungrier than he should be after only 4 hours. Helen smiled. "We may have put something in the air that makes your body use energy faster than normal. Nothing dangerous, of course. We are not trying to kill you. We just want to study how your metabolism works under stress." Captain Jake Morrison walked through the ship's corridors like he owned them. And in a way, he did. Every hallway, every room, every corner had been prepared for this moment. He knew where every alien was at all times because hidden cameras watched everything. 3 Zephyrian warriors tried to corner him in a narrow hallway. They thought they had him trapped. But Jake pressed a button on the wall, and suddenly the floor under the aliens' feet opened up. They fell down into a lower deck, landing in a room with soft walls and no way out. "Sorry about that," Jake called down to them. "We will let you out later. Right now, we need to reduce your numbers so we can study the rest of you more easily." Amy Carter was playing her own games with the ship's computer systems. Every time the aliens tried to use their technology, something went wrong. Their weapons would not charge properly. Their communication devices made strange noises. Their armor's life support system started beeping warning messages. "What is happening to our equipment?" Zektar demanded. Amy looked up from her control station with innocent eyes. "I have no idea. Maybe there is something on this ship that interferes with Zephyrian technology. We should study that. It could be very useful information." But the aliens were starting to understand the truth. The humans had not just prepared for this meeting. They had prepared for everything. Every system on the ship was designed to work against Zephyrian strengths and take advantage of Zephyrian weaknesses. Ryan Davis moved through the ship like a ghost. He was always where the aliens did not expect him to be. When they turned left, he was waiting on the right. When they tried to go up, he appeared from below. He never carried a big weapon or made loud noises. But somehow, Zephyrian warriors kept disappearing when he was around. "Where is Trooper Kelver?" one alien asked another. "He was right behind us a minute ago." They found Kelvar tied up in a storage closet, unconscious, but not hurt. Next to him was a note that said, "Thank you for volunteering for our research project. Please do not struggle. We will return you to your friends when we are finished studying you." The psychological pressure was working. The Zephyrians had started with 30 warriors full of confidence. Now they were down to 20, and those 20 were scared, confused, and starting to make mistakes. Lisa Brown's voice came over the ship's communication system. But now she was not speaking in English. She was speaking perfect Zephyrian, using words and phrases that only high-ranking officers were supposed to know. "Attention all Zephyrian personnel," she said in their own language. "Your mission has been compromised. Human intelligence has been watching your empire for years. We know about your secret bases. We know about your planned attacks on human colonies. We know everything." The aliens looked at each other with growing fear. How could the humans know their military secrets? How long had they been watching? Tony Miller appeared around a corner carrying a box full of Zephyrian weapons and armor. But these were not weapons taken from the current boarding party. These were older weapons from other Zephyrian ships. "We have been collecting these for months," Tony explained cheerfully. "Every time your people attack a human ship, we learn something new. We study your tactics. We figure out how your weapons work. We find ways to stop them." He opened the box and showed them modified Zephyrian energy rifles. "These have been changed to work for human hands. We also figured out how to reverse the energy flow. Instead of shooting out, the energy goes back into the weapon. Very dangerous for whoever is holding it." The remaining Zephyrian warriors realized they were not fighting normal humans. They were fighting humans who had turned warfare into a science. Every move they made had been predicted. Every weapon they carried had been studied and countered. Every strength they possessed had been turned into a weakness. Zektar looked around at his remaining soldiers. They were tired, confused, and afraid. The humans had not killed any of them, but they had taken away everything that made Zephyrians feel strong and confident. "What do you want from us?" he asked Jake Morrison. Jake smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of a teacher who was about to give a very important lesson. "We want you to learn something," Jake said quietly. "We want you to understand what happens when someone hunts humans. We want you to take a message back to your empire." The trap was almost complete. The last 8 Zephyrian warriors sat in the ship's main meeting room. Their weapons were gone. Their armor was damaged. They looked tired and defeated. Around them, the human crew worked quietly at their stations, recording everything and taking notes like scientists studying interesting animals. Dr. Helen Grant walked between the aliens with her recording device. She spoke into it in a calm, professional voice. Subject group shows signs of extreme stress and confusion. Physical capabilities reduced by approximately 40% due to atmospheric modifications and psychological pressure. Recommend continued observation. Zektar glared at her. We are not animals in your laboratory. Helen looked at him with kind eyes. Of course not. You are intelligent beings. That is what makes this study so valuable. We rarely get to observe how advanced alien species react when their advantages are taken away. She sat down across from him and pulled out a thick folder full of papers. Would you like to see what we have learned about your people? Before Zektar could answer, she opened the folder. The first page showed detailed pictures of Zephyrian ships. The next pages had maps of Zephyrian space territories. Then came reports about Zephyrian military tactics, weapon designs, and battle strategies. This information came from the 12 human ships you destroyed, Helen explained. Every ship you attacked had hidden recording devices. Every battle you fought was watched and studied. Every mistake you made was written down and analyzed. Amy Carter looked up from her computer station. We also have something else that might interest you. She pressed a button, and the main screen showed a star map. Dozens of red dots marked locations throughout Zephyrian space. Those dots show the positions of human observation ships, Amy continued. Ships like this one. They have been watching your empire for over 2 years. They know where your military bases are. They know which planets have your strongest defenses. They know everything. The Zephyrian warriors looked at the map with growing horror. There were so many red dots. Human ships were everywhere in their territory, watching and waiting. Captain Jake Morrison stood up and walked to the center of the room. Your empire thinks humans are weak because we do not have thick skin or 4 arms. You think we are easy to defeat because our ships are smaller than yours. He pointed to the star map. But you made one very big mistake. You assumed that being physically weaker meant we were inferior. You never considered that we might be stronger in other ways. Lisa. Brown's fingers danced over her communication controls. While you have been sitting here, I have been sending detailed reports about your ship designs and weapons to human military command. I have also been downloading information from your armor's computer systems. She smiled sweetly. Did you know that Zephyrian armor keeps records of everywhere the wearer has been? Your suits have been drawing maps of your secret bases for us. Very helpful. Danny Lee pushed his glasses up and spoke in his quiet voice. We also learned something interesting about Zephyrian psychology. Your species is very good at fighting enemies who fight the same way you do. But you have trouble adapting when someone uses different tactics. He pulled up charts on his computer screen. Humans are the opposite. We are not very good at direct combat. But we are excellent at finding new ways to solve problems. When something does not work, we try something else. When we face a stronger enemy, we find their weaknesses instead of attacking their strengths. Pete Williams wiped grease from his hands with a cloth rag. I have been studying your ship's engines while you were busy down here. Zephyrian technology is very advanced, but it is also very complicated. Too many parts that can break, too many systems that depend on each other. He grinned. Human technology is simpler, but that makes it harder to stop. If one system breaks, the others keep working. If you damage our weapons, we can still fight with basic tools. If you destroy our computers, we can still navigate by looking at the stars. Dr. Grant closed her folder and looked directly at Zektar. This brings us to the important question. What should we do with you? The Zephyrian commander tried to look brave, but his voice shook when he spoke. You will kill us, like humans always do to their enemies. Actually, no, Jake said. We are going to give you a choice. You can stay here as permanent research subjects, or you can return to your empire with a message. He walked over to a control panel and pressed several buttons. The ship's transport beam activated and suddenly Captain Vextar appeared in the room. The Zephyrian captain looked around in confusion and terror. Brother, Zektar called out. How did they capture you? Vextar's 4 arms were shaking. They did not capture me. They invited me. They said they had something important to show. Me? Amy smiled. We wanted Captain Vextar to see what happened to his boarding party. We wanted him to understand what humans are capable of when we have time to prepare. Jake gestured to the defeated warriors sitting around the room. Your 30 best soldiers were defeated by 12 humans without a single death. We could have killed them all, but we chose not to. Do you know why? Vextar looked at his brother and his warriors. They were alive but broken. Their confidence was gone. Their pride was destroyed. In some ways, this was worse than death. Because dead soldiers cannot carry messages. Vextar whispered. Exactly. Jake nodded. We want you to return to the Zephyrian Empire. We want you to tell your leaders what you learned here today. Helen Grant stood up and handed Vextar a data crystal. This contains detailed information about human military capabilities. It shows how many ships we have, where they are located, and what they are capable of doing. She paused and looked into his yellow eyes. It also contains information about every Zephyrian ship, base, and military unit that we have been studying. We want your leaders to know how much we have learned about them. Tony Miller brought out a box filled with Zephyrian equipment, but now all the weapons and armor had been modified with human technology. We are also sending back examples of how we can improve your own equipment. Consider it a gift. But why? Vextar asked. Why are you helping your enemies become stronger? Ryan, Davis spoke for the first time in hours. His voice was calm and quiet. Because we are not your enemies unless you make us your enemies. Humans do not enjoy war. We prefer peace and trade and cooperation. He stepped closer to the Zephyrian captain. But if someone forces us to fight, we will be ready. We will study them. We will learn their weaknesses. We will find ways to defeat them that they never imagined possible. Lisa Brown activated the transport beam controls. Your ships are free to leave. We have removed the jamming signals. You can contact your empire and report what happened here. Jake. Morrison walked over to stand in front of both Zephyrian captains. The message you will take back is very simple. Humans are not the weak, helpless species you thought we were. We are patient. We are clever. We learn from our mistakes and from our enemies' mistakes. He pointed to the star map still showing all the human observation ships. Every species that has tried to hunt humans has learned the same lesson. We do not just defend ourselves. We study our attackers until we understand them completely. Then, we find ways to make their strengths meaningless and their weaknesses fatal, Amy Carter added. Some species have chosen to become our allies after learning this lesson. Others have chosen to avoid human space entirely. Both choices lead to peace. Danny Lee looked up from his computers. But species that continue to attack human ships after receiving this warning, well, they discover that humans can be much more dangerous than they ever imagined. The transport beam activated, and the Zephyrian warriors began to disappear one by one. Soon only Vexitar and Zektar remained. Remember, Jake said as the light began to surround them. You were defeated by one small human ship with 12 crew members. There are thousands of human ships in space, and millions of humans who think the same way we do. As the two Zephyrian captains vanished in the transport beam, Helen Grant made one final note in her research log. Subjects showed clear understanding of the lesson. Expect significant changes in Zephyrian military strategy within 6 months. The Liberty Bell resumed its disguise as a damaged cargo ship and began broadcasting false distress signals again. Somewhere in the darkness of space, other alien species would hear those signals and think they had found easy prey. They would be wrong. Jake Morrison settled back into his captain's chair and smiled. Set course for the next hunting ground, he told his crew. I suspect we will have more visitors soon. The ship turned toward deep space, carrying its crew of patient hunters to their next appointment with species who had not yet learned the most important rule of the galaxy. Never hunt humans unless you are prepared to become the hunted.